Hello students, welcome once again to this week's biology lesson. Our topic this week is the muscular system. In our learning objectives, we will be able to identify the parts and functions of the muscular system. We'll also explain how the muscular system works. And as well, we will describe the types of muscles in the human body. Our key vocabulary: we have the muscles, myofibers, myosin, sarcomere, tendons, striated, non-striated, voluntary, involuntary, atrophy, and hypertrophy. Now, what is a muscle? A muscular system is an organ system of the human body that provides motor power for all movements of the body parts. A muscular system permits movement of the body. It maintains posture and circulates blood throughout the body. So, whenever we talk about the muscular system, our mind should go on the muscles being effectors. What I mean by being effectors is that they are responsible for responding directly or indirectly to stimulus. Muscles are always structures that are responsible for responding to directly or indirectly to stimulus. So here we have different muscles, components of the muscle. That muscle is made up of a group of fibers or muscle cells. These muscle cells, they are grouped or bounded together. They are always grouped according to their structure and functions. So based on their structure and functions, we'll be able to identify three types of muscle, which are the skeletal muscle, the smooth muscle, and the cardiac muscle. Having known this, you should understand that muscles are circulated all over our body. Our body system is made up of muscles, these red colored structures that keeps on moving all over our body, bringing about response to internal and external stimulus. They are circulated all over our body as different names have been given to all the types of muscle based on their location. Those that are found on the face, those that are found in the intestine, those that are found in our arm, those that are found in the respiratory system, those that facilitate different activities in our body. But all biological processes that happen in our body are being facilitated by muscles. So we are going to look at these different types of muscle. The first one, we have the smooth or involuntary muscle. At times, we can also call it unstriped or unstriated muscle. This is a type of muscle that lines inside the hollow organs such as the stomach, intestine, bladder. We say that it is involuntary muscle, which means that it cannot be controlled consciously. Remember that I said that the smooth or involuntary muscle is also called unstriated muscle or non-skeletal muscle. It is found in different parts of the wall of our system, like the gut, the blood vessels, iris, dermis of our skin, urinary bladder, genital tract, walls of the bronchioles. So they are found there. And whenever we talk about them, we should understand that the structure of the unstriped muscle or smooth muscle, that they are made up of a long, narrow, spindle-shaped fibers. Muscles are always made up of fibers. So these ones, they are made up of narrow, spindle-shaped fibers that without any stripe. And apart from this, that each fiber has a central nucleus. Each fiber has a central nucleus surrounded by a cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm contains what we call microfibrils. Each of the cytoplasm contains microfibers. If we can recall back when we did organelles, or you know that microfibers are there, and microfibers being a part of the major organelles of the cell, they facilitate movement. So when we have microfibers in each of these cytoplasm, it will always play its major role. The smooth muscle is not easily fatigued, and is not under the control of the weak, as I said earlier. So this action is always involuntary. It keep on moving gradually. It's not a muscle that runs in a speedy way. So the movements are always slow, because the actions always comes from the part of our nervous system that we said that is from the autonomic nervous system. So that is the part that controls this involuntary activity. Now, what are the functions of the sweet muscles? Having known the location of this muscle, we should be able to identify their functions. Like when we talk about closing and opening of cavities, tubes and ducts, they are there. Even the alimentary canals, both the narrow and the narrow lumen of the it helps for these places to open. Even when we talk about the iris, the circular muscle will narrow and the pupils will be able to dilate. So these muscles play major role in each of these different parts that is being located. Now the second one is the cardiac muscle. The cardiac muscle is also called heart muscle because it is found only in the walls of the heart. So each fiber of the cardiac muscle is just a short cylindrical cell arranged in a column connected by short stripes. Or this short stripe, that's why we say here that the cardiac muscle is striated. You see stripe is striated. And apart from being striated, one other thing that you should understand about is just like the voluntary muscles. Its action is rapid, but it's not easily fatigued. So here, it contracts and relaxes without stop throughout the life of every human being. So it doesn't get tired. It keeps on moving. It keeps on moving until there is no more life. So these are some of the attributes or characteristics of this muscle. And we know that when we talk about this muscle, what is the difference? The cardiac muscle stands to lie in between the smooth muscle and the skeletal muscle. How? Because the skeletal muscle, remember we are going into that. This one, the cardiac muscle, works under the action of the involuntary will. It doesn't work based on the unconsciousness. It's involuntary. And the smooth muscle also is also involuntary muscle. Now, what's the difference? If we look at the structure, you see these stripes, and also the location plays a major role too to differentiate the two, because the cardiac muscle is striated while smooth muscle is not striated. The third one is the skeletal muscle. Voluntary muscle is under the control of the will. It receives its nerve supply from the central nervous system. So its own nerve is not coming from the autonomic nervous system. It's coming from the central nervous system, the brain. So the voluntary muscles are striped or striated in structure. So voluntary muscles are also called skeletal muscle because they are attached directly to the bone by tendons. So they brings about movement, and their own action comes as a result of the will. They contract and relax at will to bring about movement of different body parts or every other body part that they are attached to. Whenever they are reacting, they will always bring about movement of those parts that they are attached to. And apart from that, the skeletal muscles are made up of fibers. These fibers are fused together to form what we call muscle cells. Muscle fibers are made up of similar units that are called myofibrils. These myofibrils are made up of protein filaments. They are protein filaments that we call myosin and actin. Myosin and actin are the two protein filaments that makes up the myofibrils. So these protein filaments or myofibrils are always arranged in section that's called sarcomere. A sarcomere is the basic unit of a muscle and is the part of the muscle that contracts. So when all these things are in place, it will bring about the voluntary muscle playing various roles in different body parts that they are attached to. So when they contract, they can bring about to move the body in various directions, even carrying out different activities such as walking, swinging of the arms, running, swimming, jumping, even lifting heavy objects is a result of this thing. Pulling and pushing, even dragging, rolling, trolling of objects. These are as a result of the striped muscle. When we talk about opening and closing of our mouth, even as I'm talking, the skeletal muscle is functioning, is playing its role. Chewing of substances in the mouth is as a result of the skeletal muscle. Even shouting itself, because for your vocal cord to open, is as a result of the skeletal muscle reacting to it. Walking on the field, doing the various activities that brings about, that happens as a result of will. They happen as a result of the skeletal muscle. Now, if we look at this, we'll see that most skeletal muscles are arranged in opposing pairs. The sarcomere shortens and relaxes the muscle, causing about movement. Remember that the sarcomere, the biceps and triceps makes up the sarcomere here. We contract to bend the arm of the elbow. Bending of the arm at the elbow is a result of the bicep we contract, contraction of the bicep and relaxing of the tricep. While strengthening of the arm is as a result of the biceps relaxing and the triceps contracting. So, having seen this, you will be able to see how these two things, they work in opposing direction. That's why we say that most skeletal muscles are arranged in opposing pairs, in which that this will be contracting and this will be relaxing, and this will be contracting and this will be relaxing, to bring about different movement that occurs. Suppose you want to make a movement. First thing that happens is that a nerve signal travels to the muscle that you want to move. So immediately that nerve signal comes to that muscle, calcium is released into the myofibrils. This calcium now causes the myosin and actin to attach to each other. They will stick to each other at this time. As they are attached, the actin filaments are pulled towards the center of the sarcomere. This causes the muscle to shorten or contract. But for these muscles, the triceps and the biceps or any other muscle to contract or relax, ATP is always necessary for this contraction to occur. ATP is always necessary. Adenosine triphosphate is always necessary. So when the muscle relaxes, the filaments slide back to their original positions. That's what if you want to read more about it, you can search for sliding filament theory. It will explain more about this contraction and relaxation of the muscles. Muscles get the energy they need from lactic acid fermentation. This happens during anaerobic respiration. When the body is undergoing vigorous exercise, lactic acid builds up in the muscle cells, causing fatigue, and as well as causing oxygen debt. So resting restores the needed oxygen and the lactic acid is broken down again. This is how all these things work during this period when the muscle is getting its energy from the lactic acid fermentation. Now, to remain healthy, a muscle must be regularly exercised, because without being exercised or without doing exercise, the muscle undergoes what we call atrophy. Atrophy is reduction in the size of the muscle cells. When the muscle reduces in size, that's the process we call atrophy. But if you are doing too much or you are doing extremely vigorous exercise, the muscle will undergo what we call hypertrophy. It will increase in size. So this process is what we call hypertrophy, in which people will start developing different parts on their body because they are doing extremely vigorous exercises. This results to what we call hypertrophy. We'll be stopping our lesson this week here. We have identified what the muscular system is, and as well as explain different types of muscular system and their locations, their structures, and the role that they play. Thank you. See you next week.